By writing down conditions, we got to know whether they were actually true or false. But sometimes we want to make more complex things happen in our formulas. The first example of that would be a small vocabulary test. We have here a number of words written down in Estonian language. Here they are. And we have correct translations to these in English. And the user will have to translate the words himself. And of course, we're once again going to hide the correct answers. The formula would have to give points for correct answers. Let's write equals, and the function's name is if, parentheses begin as a function begins. Now the if function will have three things written into its parentheses. So here, just write under if we have three things, and if we're really lucky, then we can even figure out from this hint what Excel expects of us ourselves. But let's right now remember that in case of if, the first thing going into its parentheses is the same condition with which we've been dealing with so far. So let's write E16 equals C16. So this is the same condition. It happens to be quite a simple one, just comparing dog to dog. And now we write semicolon, and now comes the second part of if. The first was condition. The second part of if is what to do in case the condition checks out, in case of a true. And our first if is once again going to be rather simple. We're just simply going to write 1 point for the correct answer. Now comes another semicolon, and the third thing written inside if is what to do in case the condition didn't check out. Right now, if the answer is wrong, we're going to assess it as having the result of 1 point, 0 points, 0 points. So once again, if consists of three parts. The first is a condition, the second is what to do in case the condition checks out, and the third is what to do in case it doesn't check out. We're gonna once again copy this formula, and here it is. These are the points assessed. It turns out that only the word table was actually misspelled a little, and 5 out of 6 words got scored. Now we're going to sum these scores together to have the final assessment. So the formula was equals sum, parentheses begin, and let's now click and drag to select all the points. Remember that this block of cells got written with D16 colon D21, which means that colon was for marking the block of cells, and we have 5 points as a result of this test. Let's continue with well, let's continue with something that checks whether the correct number of columns in Microsoft Excel sheet is 16,384. 16,384. Let's say the user has entered this address, and now as our second exercise we're going to write a bit of a wrong if formula, something we don't want to do from here on. We're writing equals if, parentheses begin, and now we check the user's answer to be 16,384. And if it works out, in this test, let's, for the sake of future exercises assess the correct answer to be 2 points, and if the answer was not correct, we give 0 points. So this time this way. And now, just to show you that if it's possible, we should keep those correct answers, like 16,384, we should keep them out of those formulas. It's better to divide our Microsoft Excel worksheet as having formulas, which is this if, and other parts of the worksheet as having data, like this 16,384. So I would rather edit this to be in the form of H5 equals F5. So once again, now the data, the correct answer is not within the formulas. It's a bit better style. When we come across it in the future, we're going to discuss it at more length. So once again, the data is out of the formulas, and we're just assessing whether the correct answer is the answer that's been given. Just to repeat how to hide this column of correct answers, we're going to right-click on that column letter H and select hide, and then we can click and drag from G to I and right-click on hide. Okay. Now the next if is going to be a bit more complex. Namely, we want to write down the condition that checks whether the temperature is between 0 and 100. The names have not been given, so I'm going to select these 8 cells and click on formulas, create from selection. Left column, remember, was the only correct one. It gives the name wrongly. It wants to give the name letter like this, but now it is all correct. The name letter, for instance, is given to the cell E. And now let's try to write down these more complex conditions. Equals, but we want to once again use if here to not only write true or false, but to write something more complex. We write equals if, parentheses begin, and now we'll put down 0 smaller than or equals to now. This is the first condition, and since there are going to be 2 conditions, we'll have to write an AND function within this if. So remember that the first part of the if was the condition, and since the condition itself, the more complex condition itself, had to be broken down into parts, we are going to write an AND inside the if. And now the first part was 0, smaller than or equals now, semicolon. Now comes the second part of AND. Now smaller, strictly smaller than 100. Now the parentheses are closed, and this is the end of AND. So this here all is the condition, the more complex condition, and it's the first part of the if. Okay, now let's write semicolon, and let's write what to do in case it checks out. Let's write quotation marks in liquid form, or water in liquid form. And in the case the condition didn't check out, we are going to say that in quotation marks again, but a semicolon before it, and quotation marks, water is either frozen or evaporating. And once again, the condition was the first part of the if. What to do if it checks out was the second part, and what to do if it doesn't is the third part, all separated by semicolons. The second condition checks whether the temperature now, which in this page is 22, is between hot and cold. That's right, equals if parentheses begin. And we want to use the function AND again, because the complex comparison has to be broken down into two. We write AND parentheses begin. And we write cold is smaller than now. So now is over cold. And then semicolon, now is smaller than hot. We close the parentheses, and in case this condition checks out, we want to say, let's just say it panned out, we want to say semicolon OK. So we're satisfied with the result. In parentheses, of course, is the text OK, and then we put down semicolon, and if it's not in the range in which we want it to be, we write quotation marks not OK. So these are the three parts of the if that we have here. The first part is the comparison, which checks whether it's in the given range. The second part is what to do. The third part is what to do in case it doesn't pan out. And the third if checks whether the temperature is not moderate. If it's less than cold or if it's more than hot, then we can say that it is not moderate. Let's write equals if parentheses begin. And now, since we want to check this more complex comparison to be either less than cold or more than hot, we say or parentheses begin, and we write now is smaller than or equals to cold as the first part of the comparison. Now comes semicolon, now is bigger than or equals to hot as the second part. If either of these check out, in this case both can't, but there are examples like this, like described in the previous video, in which it can happen, and then we say, if one of these checks out, we say quotation marks, temperature is not moderate, quotation marks closed, and we put down semicolon and write quotation marks, temperature is moderate. So that's what this checks. The first part of this comparison, it's a more complex one, so it's broken down into two with or. The second part of it is what to write in case it checks out, and the third part is what to write in case it doesn't check out. Here it is.